We love to have him on the show. First, for my Locked On Mavs podcast, it's Nick Angstead. Here's a guy who goes to every home game, some of the road games as well. He is so plugged in, so locked in. Nick, I can't wait to get your takes on some of this. And Saad Yousuf, he has been covering this team, writes for The Athletic. He's been covering this team. He covers so much Dallas sports. He's kind of built into the Dallas sports ecosystem. So I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. And listen, it's Locked On Mavs podcast, Nick, so you get to go first. I need where you were when the news went down and your immediate reaction.
Every one of us that cover sports, we have people in our lives that don't know anything about sports. They don't know a specific team or something, and you find yourself trying to explain certain things to them and why they're so crazy. So I'm with two of my friends that are not super into sports, and I'm sitting in their kitchen. They're doing something for their son, and all of a sudden it happens. I look at my phone, and my friend goes, "Did somebody die?" And I had to sit and explain to them what exactly happened with Luka Doncic getting traded. And of course, everyone's thinking it's Shams got hacked, right? It's over and over again until the reports started coming in, and then it really started to be real and started to become true. And then I called my co-host Isaac Harris, and we just said, "Oh my God," to each other back and forth for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's wild, man. I mean, Shams got hacked. I think we all, when we saw it, we thought it. And one of my favorite things to do today was seeing a lot of the live reactions from people who were doing podcasts, finding out while they were doing their pod, trying to parse through it and make it make sense. What about you, Saad? Where were you? What were you doing in your instant reaction?
Yeah, I was getting ready for bed because I had a radio show the next morning, and we were planning to talk Cowboys, and we were kind of etching out our segments. And I actually got Shams's tweet, and I put it in our show chat, and I said, this is something we can just talk about just because it'll be a funny little thing. Shams got hacked, and it was like, this would have been so crazy if this would have been real. So I really I have the text messages, and I put it in just like that, where I was like, this would have been crazy, but we can just talk about how hacking has gone to a next level. And then we were like, no, this is actually happening, and this is real. And we're like, well, our show just wrote it wall to wall what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And listen, this is one of those moments where I do think we're going to remember exactly where we were when this news came down, because this is something that we're going to follow for years to come. So now I do want to shift, though, guys, from that immediate shock, the disbelief, the stunningly mind-blowing nature of what we saw and what we felt. I want to talk about your reaction to what Nico Harrison said today. Saad, what stood out to you most about what he said? And was there something that he said that you just didn't buy at all?
Well, I think the first thing that stood out to me was just his demeanor. And it was a little bothersome for the moment that it was. There was, just the way that everything started out and just the playful attitude. I mean, this was, like you said, Joe, a gut punch. I mean, for a lot of people, it wasn't just a gut punch. This was a dagger for a lot of Mavericks fans. And so for that demeanor, it just felt a little out of place. And, to be honest, I thought your question was probably one of the better ones about how, this all fits in long term. And say the long term is the next 3 to 4 years, when we kind of thought Luka Doncic was going to be here for the next 10 years and was going to be the foundation of all this, was a little bit gut-wrenching as well.
Nick, I'm curious from your perspective, what do we believe at this point from the reports of whether it was overweight, whether it was defensive related? Because it seems like everyone has the same unanimous gut reaction of this is one of the 5, if not 3, if not 1 best player in the NBA. Why are you letting him go?
Yeah, the answers that Nico Harrison gave, my response is it's not good enough. It's just not good enough. The reasons that you gave, you mentioned the conditioning, he talked about culture, Luka fitting into the culture, and he didn't add to the culture. That made no sense to me. The thought of Luka going into this summer, and he has 1 year left on his deal and then a player option. He would have to take the extension this summer, and if he wasn't going to take the extension, then the Mavericks are on the clock to make a trade. And so Nico kind of got in front of that and tried to make that deal before it was supposed to happen. And so that's the only one that I can kind of look through and see. But I'm still not buying it. You deal with all that stuff. You don't just trade a star player without canvassing the rest of the league, trying to at least talk to other teams, trying to see what you can get, trying to see if there's more. What I think happened with Nico Harrison, he got really enamored by Anthony Davis, the player. He's had ties with him for a long time. There's videos that have gone viral of him talking to Anthony Davis back in Team USA days when Anthony Davis was just coming out of Kentucky. And I think he got enamored with that, got tired of some of the stuff with Luka, the injuries, the conditioning, and all that, and made the move.
Yeah, no, Nick, I think that's part of it. I do want to be even-handed, though, because I do think that for a long time there was this reticence in terms of being hypercritical of Luka, although there were times he gave us reason to be critical of the way he acted and the fact that I'm sorry, when you come in overweight, and again, some of this stuff will come out now, and apparently it wasn't just the calf strain in this preseason. He came in out of shape again. And listen, he is such a great talent. He is like this maestro in terms of basketball and this savant. And you know, we all just kind of marvel at what he can do. But listen, he is 25 now, and he's been in the league for, 7 seasons. And when it comes to that, I get it. He's young. But you would start to think that some of that would change. I was hoping at some point he would have one of those summers where he understood, all right, this is how I have to treat my body. And that didn't happen. Now, I'm not saying I would have traded Luka Doncic away, but I don't want to make it sound like he didn't do anything wrong, because that's not true. That's not true at all. There were some issues, and the conditioning thing is the one that, listen, you can't overlook that. You know, the way he treats the ref, listen, it gets on my nerves, but I'm an old school guy, right? And I know new school in the NBA, it's a little different, right? I get it. I don't know if it's the best thing in terms of being a great teammate either. And you guys remember in Oklahoma City last year when he was incessant and wouldn't leave the refs alone and he wouldn't get back on defense. And one of the only reasons they got out of that series was because someone in that organization, and I happen to know who it was, got in his face in an absolute profane way and got him in order. Why does it have to come to that? So, again, I get it. I wouldn't have traded the guy away, but there are some warts, and we can talk about them, and they can come out, and that's still not enough for him to be traded, but I don't want us to completely overlook that. All right, my rant is over. We're going to take a quick break. I might have another rant on the other side of this. I don't know. It's how we roll on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. We're back with more on the stunning, mind-blowing trade of Luka Doncic next on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show.
Today's headlines, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers.
The majority of the Mavs starting rotation took the day off in Cleveland, and it showed in a 144-101 loss to the Cavs. Dallas will next travel to Philly on Tuesday, and the Stars beat the Blue Jackets at home tonight 5-3. You think Stars fans are happy to have Jim Nill, two-time reigning GM of the year. It's an interesting segue, though, because there's been a lot of talk about the comparison, the direct comp to the magnitude of this trade. And the one thing I kind of settled on eventually was the Wayne Gretzky trade, coming from Edmonton, going to L.A., ironically. And he was 27 at the time, peak of his powers. Obviously, he was already heralded as the greatest hockey player that's ever played. Luka wasn't necessarily quite that tier, but the difference being, Wayne already had 4 titles under his belt. And Edmonton might have won one after he left, but they haven't been back for 30 years since. Joe, how do you kind of contextualize this trade and look at the macro of it all?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I immediately, just because I'm so football-centric, went to the Herschel Walker trade just because that was so mammoth in scope and so memorable for Cowboys fans, paving the way for those 3 championships. But if you go back further in history, I mean, you start to think about some of the things that the Lakers have been able to do with Wilt Chamberlain, getting him in a trade, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, getting him in a trade. And, you know, they all just love the sunshine. And the Lakers just keep getting them because they're this super team, and that's part of how they get it done. And sometimes it's hard to digest. You want to talk about hard to digest? At the very beginning of the show, I just looked at the Lakers Twitter feed, you guys. They had the arrival of Luka 12 minutes ago, and when Luka did the L.A. little hand gesture, that hurt. And I'm not even I'm a tangential Lakers fan, right? So that one really hurt. Question for you, Nick Angstead. I'm curious about your thoughts in terms of What level of winning will it take for this trade to be deemed a success?
More than what the Lakers do, right? like on the level. Like, I think this Mavericks team will probably be better than the Lakers this year and probably even next year too. The Lakers don't have a lot to build around, and they don't have any front court players right now. The Mavs have win now talent right now, but I think they got to win a title. And I think you look at their window. Kyrie has a player option this summer. Maybe he signs a 2+1 to match his deal with Anthony Davis. Then all of a sudden you have kind of like a 3-year window, and Kyrie's gonna be 33. Anthony Davis is gonna be 32. You got a 3-year window, and that's it. And so you've got to win a title in that 3-year window. And even if they win a title in that window, I've heard from a lot of Mavs fans that said, I don't think that would feel special to me, because you just ripped my heart out with taking this guy who I've loved and cherished for 6 years, named my dog after him. I know people that have named their kids after Luka Doncic. Like, you just don't come back from that.
Saad, what do you think about that? One title enough, or will it take multiple titles?
I think it has to be. It starts with multiple for me, because I think with one, I go off of what Nick just said. And the other thing is Mavs fans in particular, spoiled by Dirk's journey of 21 years. We saw Dirk. We adopted Dirk. He grew up here. We saw the struggles. We went through 06. We went through the We Believe Warriors in 07. We went through the whole trajectory with Dirk. And so when he won the one title, it felt more special than the Miami Heat getting together, winning 2, going to 4 finals. It doesn't compare. The Mavs 2011 title stands alone because it's not just about the showcase. It's about the feelings. And you had that feeling with Dirk. You had that 2019 season where Dirk and Luka played together. It was the passing of the torch. You had all of that. And so all of that just went away. And even if they won the title now, say they won it this year, trust me, it would go a long way for the front office. But it's Anthony Davis, it's Kyrie Irving, it's Klay Thompson. All 3 of those guys have their legacies etched elsewhere, whereas Luka was our guy. It was Dallas's kid.
I agree, but I do want to add just a little bit of perspective here and think about the dearth of championships, not just in NBA basketball, but period, for North Texas, and how few and how precious they are. I do think there will be some minds changed. Not right now. It's too soon. It's too soon. But I do think if they can win a championship, it will change some minds, because it has to, because it's that hard.